Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, stressed out Christians who don't want to just survive. I'm Liz Frericks, and this is my husband Evan.
Good morning.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us today on Monday.
Yeah, opportunity day. The whole week's ahead.
Super exciting. As you guys know, we work our way through the CSCs. They are Tai Chi principles adapted from Peter Ralston. We found are really the difference between being in that bleh, like just stuck in the hamster wheel of mundanity.
Yeah, and the overwhelmness of it all, like,
So stressful.
Right.
But it's like a lot of stressful nothing. Mm-hmm. And the difference between that and then really, thriving and getting to do the things that are what God designed you to do.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, even seeing some of those little tasks as parts of the whole, parts of our calling, parts of our, the epicness. It can be epic to vacuum the floor if we know that it's part of loving our family, which is a high calling or something,
Right. So we talk about one of those, being calm, surrendered, centered, connected, and complete each weekday to remind us and all you guys that like having a reminder too that those are still important. And this week we're talking about God's love, which I'm super excited about because that's such a life-changing thing.
Yeah. And this is really kind of stemming off of what we talked about back in the second week of February when we were talking about scarcity and the antidote to, scarcity, which is this idea that, there's not enough resources, there's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not,
I'm not enough.
I'm not enough, or I don't have enough whatever to do this stuff that I'm supposed to be doing. And God says, yeah, you do. I mean, if I asked you to do it, I'm going to give you all the resources you need to do it. And I'm rich enough to do that for everybody in the world. But we let that scarcity mindset steal our calm all the time. We don't know if there's going to be enough resources or if God's provision is really even there, right? He says he'll give us what we need, but sometimes we feel like he's let us down. We start to doubt.
Right. Well, and I think, if we're not grounded in God's love, there's no reason not to be in scarcity mode. At least for me, growing up and not trusting God. I didn't start trusting God till I was 23 or 24, somewhere in there. It was right after our first daughter was born. And, you can't trust that God's going to take care of you if you don't believe that he loves you. Because love is the difference between, if you aren't loved, God is the one who's like, all right, big plan. We're moving nations. We're moving, people this direction. But if he loves us, then he's intricately involved in every part of our lives. Mm-hmm. He cares whether or not we have enough time and enough sleep and enough whatever. And he cares whether we're stressed out if we can't find our keys or can't find, whatever it is. He's intimately involved in those details. And sometimes I think we just get we get this view of God that he's like a CEO or something where, the secretary down near the bottom is not going to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to ask the CEO where to mail this letter to. You go through a chain and your problems have to be pretty big to make it all the way up to the CEO.
Yeah.
So if we treat God like he's a CEO instead of like a loving father that's intimately involved in our lives, we are going to feel scarce,
Yeah, and it's hard for us to wrap our mind around how God can pay attention to the world and attention to us individually. I mean, that's just unfathomable. But we see it time and time and again in Scripture. God is paying intimate attention to his children.
Right.
I mean, he's holding our molecules together by the power of his will and his love.
Right. Colossians 1:17 talks about that. Another verse that I was thinking about was in Matthew 10, where Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from the will of your Father. And even the very hairs on your head are numbered. So don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows." And I think when you think about that, realistically speaking, okay, so I do not care how many hairs you have on your head. Because it's just not, I don't need to be that involved in your life. That's a little TMI, little too
Yeah.
too close. But God does. Like, that's how intimately involved he is. He knows when you are brushing your hair and a hair falls out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we don't even know how many hairs are on our children's head. And
Right.
they're, and we're his children, and he knows us inside and out.
Right, and he's a loving father. And that was such a huge shift for me. In Hebrews 12, where it talks about how God is a loving father, that he disciplines us as a loving father. I think sometimes if we've grown up with a father, that discipline looks like, losing their temper or yelling or just ignoring the problem, whatever it looks like. That's not who God is. We got to start with what's true first and start with who God is. Otherwise, our circumstances don't make any sense. Just like with the problem of evil, you can, problem of pain and suffering, you can look at those things and you can start with, I'm looking at all these awful things in the world. So therefore, God, a good and powerful God would not allow these things to exist. Therefore, a good and powerful God must not exist. Or you can start with, God exists and he's good and he's powerful. So therefore, what I'm looking at must not be the way, like he must not see that the way that I do.
It must not be meaningless.
Right. He's redeeming it. He's working in every single situation, no matter how difficult it is. And maybe we won't see that until, after we're dead and all that. But it's still there. And so then that's how you can trust God. And you can be like, all right, Lord, I'm just going to trust you. Mm-hmm. And the more you rest on that, the more you do those safe tests with the Lord. And that was something that I had to practice because, like I said, I didn't trust God for a really long time. It wasn't until I was like practicing little things like, okay, Lord, I can't find my keys. I talked to him all day throughout the day. Like, oh, I'm really tired. And, oh, I can't, whatever it is. Just little things that come up. The kids are cranky. Please work in that situation. And just seeing him over and over and over, taking care of those little details and working something amazing in the middle of them has really built my faith.
Yeah, and asking to see things the way that God sees them, especially in light of his provision for me and for the girls and, for us is one of those ways. Like, okay, I read in your word, it says you love us, you take care of us, you watch over us closer than you watch over the sparrows. What does that look like in my life? How do I understand that in my life? Like, what is that you're doing for me? And I think he wants to show us those things. But it takes practice, like you said, and it takes interaction. I mean, if it's confusing and we just shut it down and be like, well, God must not be all powerful because look at all this pointless suffering. And we just leave it at that without struggling with it and asking God to help us understand. Well, we're not going to be as engaged with that love because we've shut it off.
Yeah, it's not a matter of changing what is, it's changing how we feel about what is, Because you can feel all you want that, if you're Nebuchadnezzar, you can feel all you want that you're a cow and you're going to eat grass, but that does not make it true. So we want to change our feelings to align with what's actually true.
I think one of the things that helps me trust God when it feels like, he's either let me down or he's taken too long to solve some problem is when we look up verses that talk about God's abundant love. So you can go whatever your favorite Bible web page is or Bible app and search for abundant love. You're going to find all these verses that talk about God's abundant love. And many, many of them also say, and he is slow to anger. That's part of his abundant love. Mm-hmm. And so in our minds, we're like, yeah, he's slow to anger. Look, my neighbor cut me off, and why didn't God smite him right then and there? He's very slow to anger, but that's part of his abundant love, his patience with the problems of the world, and his work in unfolding his plan to rescue the world.
Yeah.
And trying to see those things and share in God's patience helps me get my calm back. But it's something I've got to ask God for and pray through.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think we can't change our perspective. Just like any relationship, you are only half the relationship, and it's only as you're connecting with the other person that the magic happens. So you can't have a relationship with God and not actually connect to them. Like, you have to actually do the work of, okay, Lord, this is how I feel. I'm stressed out about this. Do you love me? Are you still working in this? And have him, be faithful to answer.
Yeah. I think sometimes we doubt that God cares about all the little stuff. And it could be that we've never told him about like, if we just cut that off in the past, we're like, well, he doesn't want to hear about me losing my keys. And then you never talk to him about how frustrating it is to lose your keys, or, because then anything, like, we want to pray about everything, and God's interested in hearing it. But the less we interact with him about that stuff, the less likely it is that we'll interact with him about the next thing, and we'll just keep more and more to ourselves, and we'll get further and further away from calm and true peace.
All right. Well, hopefully that encourages us all to maybe, take some of those small things to the Lord. And if you're not, ask him to give you wisdom into why you're not. Because if it is a wounding, just like we talked about last week with boundaries, I think sometimes it's hard to trust God when you've had either a Christian in your life betray you in some fashion, or when, something bad has happened and you're like, Lord, you didn't.
Yeah, you could have stopped this.
Right. And you didn't. You allowed whatever to happen. So, taking the time to be like, okay, Lord, show me why it is that I have such a hard time trusting you. And then doing the work to deal with those things makes such a huge difference.
We need to struggle through it. I mean, a great prayer is like, how is this love? How is this taking care of me?
Right.
And that's a prayer. I mean, if we just are like, well, I'm not talking to God anymore, he totally let me down, then we're definitely in a jam there we can't get ourselves out of.
All right. We love you guys, and we're praying for you. Thanks to everybody that's been sharing the show and listening to the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this podcast helpful, please do continue to share it. As always, pick whether today is going to be awesome, because it totally can be awesome.
That's right.
And come back tomorrow, and we're going to keep talking about God's love and surrender.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you then.
Have an awesome Monday.